You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, my guest is going to help us with a couple of things. One of the chief things we talked about in the green room, you can't get to better until you get to different. And I'll let her elaborate on that a little bit. Her name is Diana. Diana, I forgot to ask you.
Kokoska. You know what, everybody? They just call me Diana K.
Diana K. It's Koska, is that right?
Kokoska.
Kokoska, okay. And sorry, folks, you'll see why I fumbled and stumbled when we print her name in the show notes. I usually make it a habit to clarify that as we're doing the run-up and getting ready to go, and I just was so excited about the topic, I forgot to do that, so my apologies, Diana. But Mrs. K, how are we going to take off here? So, specifically, Diana brings with us, she had an instrumental part in the development of the Keller Williams Academy and the many things they have done to help thousands and thousands of professionals launch careers in the real estate world. And I'm going to let her tell some of that story. It was an illustrious campaign in her career path. So Diana, tell us kind of how that went down and what got you into that first, and then what was that journey like?
Well, it was very interesting because I'd written systems for real estate, being a real estate salesperson, and then going on to having my own company, et cetera. I started getting a little bit of attention because of the systems I had written, systems that were being purchased by agents all over, especially the Keller Williams agents. And of course, Gary Keller called me to Austin and we talked a little bit, showed him all of the systems, and he started the Mega Agent productivity systems of his own. I was with a different company at that time, and eventually they called me and said, we'd love for you to run this Mega Achievement productivity systems. They had changed it a little bit and it was consulting. So I went down, looked at it. It was losing about $1 million a year. And I knew at that point, my old saying, you can't get to better until you get to different. Things had to change. So we took it from consulting, made it into coaching, added events for free, did many things, especially training of coaches. How could they coach to help the people? And not just coach in business, coach the entire person, because our business affects our life and our life affects our business. And mainly it was that coach had to become like a partner in those people's business. Well, we went on to do coaching and then training, group coaching, and I just kept adding more and more things and wrote a program, Doug, called BOLD, Business Objective, A Life by Design. And I wrote it during that time of 2008, 9, 10, when real estate agents were dropping like flies and people were losing their houses. It was a bad time in real estate, if you recall. And this program, while everyone else was getting out of the business, those agents were averaging 14.7 transactions in 7 weeks. Now, people don't have a benchmark for that. So let me just tell you, most people sell 5 a year. So they were going, how in the world is this happening? And it was all because of working on people's mindsets. And that's the part that I think business really gets incorrect, is we forget that the mindset lives in the unconscious mind. An attitude, which is what most people talk about, lives in the conscious mind. Anybody can have a great attitude if they put their mind to it. Yet, how are we helping our people grow their mindset? And I was curious as to how that could be done. And that's what led me to write the book, Becoming More.
Fascinating. And I think you're spot on. There's a lot of work. I'm guilty of it as a coach. I often challenge my clients to ask themselves the question, what is my mindset about what I'm doing? And inevitably what I get is all of these very frontal cortex answers, this intellectual answer about, well, I'm this or I'm that, or I'm thinking this or thinking that. And that's all sort of the experiential outcome of what might be going on in a good statement. But when you see that there's a need for a change, where does that change really come from?
Right. Well, we went from losing $1 million a year to making over $500 million. And we know that it works. I can tell you by learning about mindset. And I went out on a quest. I had always heard that old saying, didn't believe it, that, oh, if you believe it, you can achieve it. I just never bought into that, because you need more than that. Action is what moves the needle. Yet, how do we get our people to take action, especially when they're burnout or they have anxiety and some stress? They're wondering where the money's going to come from. And that's the challenge that I set out to solve. And when I started delving into neuroscience, which I've been studying the brain since I was in 8th grade, I was fascinated because my brother and sister both had brain tumors. I wanted to know how to help them. And so I studied on, why do we make the decisions we make? How do we make the decisions we make? And can we help other people make better decisions? And so this challenge, delving into neuroscience books, which are very boring, Doug, I have to tell you, that was very boring. Yet I did find that mindset is spoken about so much that there were over 150 mindsets that
Wow.
I found. And I went, what is this? I know Carol Dweck talks about fixed versus growth, and those are the biggest. Yet, what about entitlement versus gratitude, doubt versus confidence, scarcity and abundance, negative and positive, hubris, humility, judgment, curiosity? Those are the ones that really interested me. And the more I looked at these great, successful people, and not just people that made a lot of money, people that had peace, people that felt like they were doing something with their life, living their purpose, I narrowed it down to 7 mindsets that I believe that limit us and 7 that liberate us. Then how do we go about going from who we're being to who we desire to be? And I made a model from going from being to becoming.
Wow. Powerful, powerful stuff. Well, and again, I can attest, being a little bit of a real estate banker back in the day and being in and around the mortgage business and all of those things. And I had a front row seat in the time frame you're talking about, the 08, 09. As most of my listeners know, I actually had to close a company that was collateral damage to all of that carnage. So I know it personally. But I told you in the green room, I have, over the years, I've had friends and colleagues that have certainly subscribed to and become part of the Keller Williams network. And I mean, it's totally life-changing to those individuals, so clearly. I'm a big fan of the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid." They drank all of the training Kool-Aid that was offered and applied it and made the changes they needed to make, and have been incredibly successful folks. We have a lady right here in my neighborhood who tragically lost her husband about 20 years ago, and didn't know what she was going to do because he was the primary breadwinner. And she jumped on board, and she has a um, brokerage business now that I have no idea what her volume is, but her signs are everywhere. And with those signs that go in the yards, there or shortly thereafter sold signs. So I know she's doing something and doing it well. So she's probably hitting some of those numbers like you were telling me, like the 14
7
sales in
weeks, right?
7 weeks versus 5 a year. She's definitely probably in that stratosphere somewhere.
Yes, I'm sure she's doing great. And it's a great company. And yes, we were able to, uh, I was so blessed with so many opportunities, being able to help write courses and to help the company go to the #1 training company in the world for 5 years straight, where we were put in the Hall of Fame for training. And things that people weren't even thinking about training, like coaching. I did a coaching skills camp. and then an advanced coaching skills camp. We had the growth initiative. We had so many things, and it was always because we were willing to look at different. And that was basically because, I mean, you look at people like Blockbuster, they're not around anymore. Sears, Radio Shack, what happened to them? Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix. They could have bought it. I think they were asking something like 40, $50 million. And they said, oh, no, 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 we're doing just fine. And they were making a lot of money, yet they didn't look where the world was going, and they didn't want to change the model that they thought would keep them successful.
Right.
Well, Netflix, made something like $33.7 billion in 2023. Big mistake by Blockbuster.
Right, right. Well, and the business history books are littered with stories like that. Besides the ones you mentioned, Kodak famously missed a whole lot of mark with digital cameras, although they're now enjoying a little bit of a resurgence, but nothing like they might have been if they had made that pivot on time, because they certainly had the customer base to leverage. But so let's talk about that. First, I'm very curious, where did you lock in on the power of that statement? If you want to say it again, if you want to get better, you have to be different.
Yeah, you can't get to better until you get to different. I actually came up with that. My brother, who I mentioned earlier, had a brain tumor. I actually found him, I thought he was dead on the floor, and we didn't know what was going on. It was pretty riveting at the time. And when he came home, it was in the time, Doug, where they didn't know much about the brain or what was transpiring. They didn't have physical therapy. Yale had just opened up the neuroscience division. So it was just like all new. The brain was the new frontier, right? And Mom and Dad bought him a tape recorder. The younger people won't even know what I'm talking about here. Yet I would say a word, he would say a word, we'd rewind it and play it back. And he literally had to say these words different each time to eventually teach himself how to talk again. And when he stood up and started walking, when they said he would be in a wheelchair, when he got his speech back, he actually had to learn how to walk and talk 4 different times in his life. I realized that we learn something, we implement, we fail at it, we learn a new way. And each time we had to look at it doing something different. And so I just came up with the phrase one day when I was talking with someone, and I said, well, they wanted to get better. And I said, well, you can't get to better until you get to different. And then I just started saying it over and over again. And the biggest part of it is how we think, Doug. When you look at that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great book, the biggest thing was the way that they were thinking about life, thinking about risk, thinking about whatever it was that was before them. How did they make decisions? So I went out on this quest to say, what does our brain go through? If we don't like the story of our life, because every story has a victim, a villain, a hero, and which part are we playing? Most people aren't even playing the main character in their own life. They're letting someone else write the story for them. And a lot of people end up playing that victim because they've taken on somebody in their life that's the villain. And they don't realize they can be their own hero. My brother and sister both became the hero of their life. And I watched that. And I thought, well, it starts with the story. We have to say, here's my story. I don't like it. What do I want to change? And then it goes to our thoughts. And from our thoughts, we form our beliefs. And our beliefs bring on our values. And those 3 make our emotions. All of those make up our mindset. And then, of course, from there, it goes on to our character, the goals that we set, the words that we use. And eventually we can become and make a new story for ourselves, leaving a legacy that we so desire.
That is very powerful. And I'm reminded just recently, I taped an episode with one of my guests who is a big disciple of the Bob Proctor, the Proctor Gallagher Institute and all of that. And I think you're probably familiar with that because you're a fellow Maxwell coach, and I know the Maxwell work has a lot of Proctor in it. So, um, have you kind of veered into that pond a little bit with Bob Proctor's teachings?
I did not take any teachings from Bob. I knew of him and had a great deal of respect for him. I did watch some of the videos on YouTube, things like that. Jim Rohn was a big one for me and his philosophies. Uh, there's so many people out there that have gone before us that bring all these things up. Personal growth. A lot of people are just not into personal growth right now. And that's where it all starts. We have to work on ourselves because we can't give what we don't have.
Right,
And
right.
so we got to put it inside of us. It was kind of like my son and I, we were walking along the beach down in Mexico, and when we came up, there was this, it looked like Fort Knox. I mean, they had plastic fencing all around and this netting stuff. And I went, what in the world is all of that? And he goes, oh, Mom, those are turtle eggs. They're protecting them. And when the turtles hatch and they start towards the sea, I mean, if we're here, we can help get them into the ocean before the predators grab them, right? And as we walked by those eggs, Doug, I really realized something of our own life, that if an egg cracks from the inside out, new life begins. Yet if an egg cracks from the outside in, life ends. So a lot of people are sitting there saying, hey, my environment, I need more support. I need this from everybody else to make a better life. And that's not true. It has to start from the inside. We have to literally develop something new, like the egg cracking from the inside out. All change begins on the inside. And growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow's going to be better than today.
I love that. I will admit it prompts a question in my mind though, Diana. If for the many years you've been at this, have you observed a fundamental shift generationally? And now we have, I guess technically we have five on the horizon. Have you seen shifts in the kind of generational strata that we're working with in terms of where people are starting and when they might realize that they need to make some of those personal growth shifts and what stages of life they tend to connect with that?
Yeah, you bring something up. There's five generations in the workplace right now. And yes, they were all programmed in a different way. I mean, television programs us, teachers program us. A lot of kids have never known the world without a tablet in their hand, right? I mean, my little granddaughter can get a keyboard and go faster than, it's just amazing. Yet we
Right.
weren't brought up that way. We were brought up with typewriters, I mean, very different. Well,
Big
let's look
cheap
at some of
tablets for some of us.
that's right. The only tablets we knew were the aspirin tablets that we took, right? So I it reminds me of a story, Doug, that this gentleman, he owned a paint store. And this young kid comes to work for him, and the kid loves paints. And of course, he likes TikTok and Instagram and all these social things. And so he's mixing paints and he's putting on Instagram how this paint will go with this thing. And if the paint is on this wall with the sun shining, how it will brighten the room. And he's giving all these ideas. So he goes to the paint owner, the paint store owner, and he says, hey, I've got this great idea. Why don't I do this? And we'll start advertising the paint store. Instead of embracing that, the gentleman got upset and fired him. And he
Hmm.
said, how dare you do all of that while I'm paying you to sell paint? So the kid, feeling bad for a while, he goes and then he decides, you know what? I'm just going to open up a paint store because people started asking on Instagram, why aren't you sending us the things? Give us more about paint. Well, he opened up not too far away, and the guy ended up closing his paint store because the kid took over. See, if we're not open, if we're not curious, if we don't bring that curious mindset to the forefront and start asking the kids, why are you doing that? Tell me about what you're thinking. Tell me why you believe that will work. Because they've got great ideas and
Right.
they go out and they have that curious mindset where most of the older ones were addicted to information and allergic to implementation. We think our ways sometimes are the only ways. Whereas the kids, they will explore. Many of them are not afraid to make a mistake. They take more risks than the older people do, and they think differently. They go, if I were to do this, how would it affect that? And most kids right now, if you're not giving back to the world, if you don't care about how you're affecting the environment and what you're doing, well, they don't want much to do with the company.
Right. Right. Definitely see that emerging quite a bit. And, a couple of thoughts have gone through my mind. I also, twice now on this show, I've had a gentleman named Roy Osing, and he is that he's taken your different mantra a little bit differently. His is more in your face. It's his book says, "Be different or be dead." And same theme, same principles, same point of direction, but he has, he took some of his ideas and turned one organization into $1 billion company, and then he's helped guide and consult others along the way. And sometimes when you hear some of his stories, the work he's helped companies do, those that, for instance, I'm going to paraphrase and use some of Roy's stories to make the point. If that paint store owner had said, I'm not going to be a paint guy, but I am going to help people change their living environments,
Yes.
and oh, by the way, we're going to do that with color combinations of this paint we happen to sell. That would have been a whole different approach to what they're doing in the world. And it does. It for some, you might hear that or look at that and go, well, that's just a fancy way to say the same thing. And the reality is, no, it's not. It's a much different outlook and mindset.
Yeah, the perspective changes, doesn't it, Doug? I mean, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact, and everything that we see is our perspective, not the truth. And when we look at different things, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change is a great phrase. And that store owner was unable to look at something differently. I know in real estate, a lot of people say, well, I sell homes. And I go, no, you don't. You sell memories. It's inside that home. You help families create memories. It's like Starbucks, and they didn't come up with it. It was another coffee company, yet they grabbed hold of it. That we're not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. And so I think sometimes we get away from that and our business starts going down when we realize that we are all in the people business and every one of us have only one product to sell. That's ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't sell ourselves, and I'm not talking about bragging and all of that kind of stuff, yet what words do we use to describe ourselves? What words do we use when we're speaking that will help us or hinder us? Because there's limiting words and there's liberating words. And like I was coaching this one lady and she kept saying, oh, I'm so depressed over this. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm so frustrated. I go, stop. I want you to change that. And instead of saying, I'm so depressed over this, I want you to say, I'm working through it. We're going to work through it, not get stuck in depression, anxiety, stress. And by the way, we're not going to be frustrated, because being frustrated literally puts chemicals in us that shuts down our brain from really thinking on anything other than the problem. We want to be fascinated, because when we're fascinated, we're looking for opportunities, we're looking for possibilities. So you're working through it and you're fascinated with the possibilities ahead. And when we started speaking differently, things started happening inside of her, because we know that every thought, every word carries energy. It carries a chemical into our body, and it's either good or it's bad. And I just desire so much to help people get the liberating side of their life. Like, one of the things in my book, as crazy as it sounds, is write your eulogy. And people go, Diana, that's real creepy. I go, it really is. I get it. Yet write it out and then distill it down to where it's a couple of sentences. And like mine is, she added value to everyone and made a difference. That's it. So every morning at 7 a.m., my phone goes off and it says, what will you do today to add value to others? At 7 p.m., it goes off and it says, what did you do today to add value to others? And so I know where I desire to go. Yet if we don't know where we're going, how are we going to get there? So write out your eulogy, decide what it is that you desire to be known for. Jeff Henderson has a book called For, and he'll help you decide what you want to be known for if you need some help. Yet once you know and you start working on yourself to bring the liberating, that potentiality outside of you, because every one of us have gifts. The problem is most people haven't opened them up, Doug.
Right. And I think it's safe to say that many people seldom really truly look forward in a healthy, positive way. They fundamentally don't look at all. They might look ahead at something that's expected or a deadline they are trying to meet, and they may conjure up their own sense of dread or fear about it. But they spend far too much time looking back, kind of rationalizing, saying, see, that didn't work out very well, and see this, see that, see everything. And one trick I was taught a number of years ago is to challenge people with the idea, and it goes like this. So Diana, what if I saw you 5 years from now? We cross paths in an airport, and we haven't seen each other in all of those 5 years. And I'm looking at you, and you're just the picture of perfect health, just a high fireball of energy and excitement. And I say, my gosh, Diana, you look great. What has happened in the last 5 years since I saw you? What would your answer to that be? And it kind of opens up that whole lens of possibility. And I I did have one client that we played that game for a minute, and she said, "Well, that wouldn't be true of me. If you saw me in 5 years, I'll just be a train wreck just like I am today." And I said, "Well, there we go. Okay."
Predicting your future, those words, it's like our reticular activating system, part of our brain, is put there to help us, because there's so much going on around us at any given time in our life that it filters things out that aren't important to us. And it's kind of like our Google search engine. I mean, you put something in the computer in Google, it shows you what you ask for. It doesn't show you everything on the World Wide Web, for heaven's sakes. And so we tell our reticular activating system, hey, this is important to me. And then it starts pointing out all the things that are important, like buying a new car. You buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, all of a sudden you think you started a new trend. There's so many of that car everywhere around. You see it everywhere. Whereas before you were interested in it, you didn't see it at all. That's the Raz at work. And that lady is saying, hey, nothing's going to change. And the Raz goes, your wish is my command. I'll keep you worse off than you ever thought you could be. I'll just point out all those places that you're being a victim or a villain or whatever, right? It'll be kind of fun.
So when you begin talking to a person or a group on these journeys, where does it all start?
It's very interesting because, like you did with this lady in the BOLD program, they actually wrote a letter to themselves, and it was only 1 year later, as to all the great things that had happened in their life, to put emotions and really descriptive words in the letter. Sealed up the letter, they gave it to me, they addressed it to themselves, they turned it in, and a year later, I gave the letter back. We mailed it out. People were amazed, things they couldn't even remember about writing. One lady had talked about buying a house, and she said, I was just kind of playing with everything because, I'd taken out bankruptcy, I didn't have a lot of money. Well, she ended up buying a house from somebody that wanted to help her. They carried back the loan. They didn't make her put but a few thousand down. She goes, who would have ever thought I would have had a house, yet the way I wrote it? And I said, well, look at how you wrote it. It was like you were living in the house already. One lady talked about seeing her daughter come down a curved staircase in a beautiful gown for the prom. They didn't even live in a house with a curved staircase. Yet by the time the year was up, they'd purchased a home, and she goes, I forgot all about it. Our brain is so powerful. And so I love that exercise. Where I start with people is, where is their thinking now? We have an assessment, and we're just literally revamping it a little bit, where it will tell us our top 3 mindsets out of the 7. And it will literally, the full report will give you all 7, yet the top 3 will tell you what you generally focus on, how you look at things, the way you can look at things a little bit better to even make that more of a strength for you. Plus, it will tell you some of the things that you can do to have like a more grateful mindset. One little thing is, find 5 things you're grateful for before your feet ever hit the ground. Another one is, when you walk over to the copy machine or out to the car or the mailbox, think about things you're thankful for, and then on the way back to where you were, give gratitude for those things. And all of a sudden, your brain starts looking for other things to be grateful for. Because when you focus on the lack, well, you just get more things that you lack. It's so interesting how this piece of equipment, our brain, lies to us, and we accept the lies that it gives us. It's there to protect us, and most of the time it protects us in the bad way. When you look at successful people like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. For heaven's sakes, he knew his dream. He knew what was in his mind. You look at any great person, Gandhi, any of them, they had a dream. They couldn't taste it, couldn't touch it, couldn't feel it, couldn't smell it. Yet it was so alive in their mind. It was like they were living in it already, even though it had not come about. Disney, with Disney World, he passed away before it opened. And at the ribbon cutting ceremony, his wife, or the CEO, turned to Lillian, his wife, and said, wow, I wish Walt could have seen this. And she laughed and said, are you kidding me? He saw it, or we wouldn't be standing here.
Yeah.
That's the people forget. They focus so much on the problem. And when we focus on the problem, and some people argue with me, Doug, and they say, Diana, I am focusing on a solution. I go, well, to find a solution, you still have to focus on the problem. Why don't you just write down what you want to create and focus on creating it? And the problem will go away. Where are we putting our focus? Because what we focus on expands. And most people think they're focusing on solutions when they're really unconsciously focusing on the problem. They're making decisions and working to control their life with their conscious mind, when the unconscious mind is the decision maker. And if the conscious mind and the unconscious mind are not in alignment, you're not hitting a goal, because you set the goal with your conscious mind. Your unconscious mind is the one that allows you to obtain that goal. And if you don't believe you deserve it, well, you'll sabotage yourself. I tell people everybody has a financial thermostat right there in their head. And just like the thermostat on the wall, that if it's set on 72 and it's 74, well, kick on the air conditioning to cool it down. And if it's at 68, set at 72, well, the heat turns on and heats it up. What's your financial thermostat? Because if you go over it, it's almost like your brain will help sabotage yourself to where it comes back to what you think you deserve. And yet, if you aren't obtaining that financial thermostat, man, you'll kick in gear. You'll do all sorts of things, like I did, putting my kids in a little red wagon, going door to door because I couldn't afford a babysitter. My financial thermostat was much higher than that. I knew I deserved more. And so I went out and I did whatever it took to get it. Yet, are we helping people raise their financial thermostat? And it's not just money, Doug. I know when I talk, sometimes people go, oh, it's all about the money becoming more, more, more. I go, no. Because see, you've got to be the person to do what needs to be done. And then you can have whatever it is you desire.
Right. Right. You know, as you were describing this, I couldn't help. I had another guest on my show a while back. He's the owner of a plumbing company in Denver, and my audience has heard me talk about this guy a couple of times, and I do it for good reason. He has embraced this idea, and even though he doesn't specifically talk about all this brain science, he encourages his team. They meet quarterly and they'll have a barbecue or something. And as part of the exercise, he will have everybody build an updated vision board for their own lives.
Yeah.
And we're talking a group of plumbing techs, guys that get on a truck every day and go out and do plumbing repairs or installations at people's houses. But, he challenges them to have visions for themselves, and then they collectively do a vision board for the company. And when I was visiting with him a while back, I was in his office. He had just opened a brand new building. They had purchased this building, and he said, funny thing, Doug. He said, let me show you something. And he dug through this pile of stuff in his office. He pulls out this vision board. He said, we did this board 3 years ago. Look at this picture in the middle of the board. This was our hope and dream for the building we would one day move into. And you would swear that it was the building they were now in. I mean, the whole shape and design of it, everything, almost to the T. It was 2 stories tall. It had this facility in the back and had this curved glass front. And that's where they were operating now, in a building just like that. And it had come on the market. He wasn't even aware of it. Somebody told him this building is available. Sounds like the size you want. He went over and looked at it and couldn't believe it when he saw it. He said, "Oh my gosh." But the one story he other also tells is he had a new plumber join him, and the first time this guy sat down to do this exercise, he had no clue what a vision board was. And so they kind of coached him a little bit, and they said, well, what's really important to you right now personally? Just what's on your heart and mind? And he said, I need to earn enough money to buy my daughters some bicycles. They need new bicycles. And my friend, the company owner, he said, I grinned to myself. I thought, when this guy really gets his feet on the ground with us, he's not going to believe his opportunity to get spot bonuses. He said he'll have those bicycles in weeks, not months. And sure enough, the guy got busy, learned all the systems and the promotional things they offered to their employees. And sure enough, it was about 2 weeks. He had the cash he needed to go buy the girls their bicycles, So you connect on that level, you start thinking that direction, and, the world does come to you.
So amazing. It's like there was a catcher, Jeremy Brown, for the Oakland A's. And he was a little bit heavy, and people teased him all the time about he couldn't run, right? He was a good hitter, and he'd always make it to first base. And then, of course, they would put someone else in for him. Only there was one time he said, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it. I hit that ball. I am gonna get to second base. I'm tired of these people saying everything to me, right? And so he hits the ball and he runs to first base and he's going for it. And it's pretty exciting because as he rounds first base, yet all of a sudden, all those nightmares come back into his head. And he pivots to go back to first base, and he falls on the ground and he literally crawls back to first base. And he's hugging first base. And of course, he looks up to see if he's out. The umpire's laughing at him. The opposing players laughing at him. He looks up, the grandstands, the people are laughing. And he gets up, he dusts himself off, and they go, Jeremy, you hit a home run. And as he went around the rest of the bases, people couldn't believe it. Yet, see, I believe there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that have hit a home run and they don't even realize that they're hanging on to first base, whatever that is, whether it's I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, all these limiting beliefs that they're unwilling to look at, to identify, to challenge, to change, or to have somebody help them change. Because everybody has hit a home run in their life, yet this gentleman is helping people realize the home runs that they've hit and can continue to hit. And I love that he's doing that with the vision boards, because he's opening up their mind, telling their reticular activating system what's important to them. And the RAS, it'll help them find it. It really will.
Well, Diana, that's probably a great note to wrap up here. This has been a wonderful time with you. I really appreciate you sharing. Tell people the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more.
Well, yes, they can go on YouTube. And Diana Kokoska is a tough one to spell. So it's Kokoska. I'm on Facebook, Diana Kokoska, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. Go to my YouTube channel at Diana K. Just put at Diana K and you'll find me. Thanks so much, Doug.
That's awesome. Well, as always, folks, we're going to have that info in the show notes, so please feel free. And if you're listening to this episode on your favorite streaming service, don't forget we have a video version over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, check out all the archives, leave us your feedback and comments, give us recommendations for any guests you'd like to see, or maybe you yourself are interested in joining our discussions. We'd love to hear from you. But with this, we're going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.